and potentially satisfy so much more people who either wait for The Walking Dead to show up on Netflix in general or just gave up on it entirely.
Shut up.
Okay, that might just be wishful thinking on my end. Regardless of all of this real-world financial stuff, this isn't the main reason that I'm making this video claiming that the world of The Walking Dead is somehow already falling apart. Instead, it's because of some, let's call them, concerning creative decisions that are starting to make their way around the rumor mill. Starting specifically with the rumor that the upcoming Rick and Michonne spinoff is only meant to be one full season. This just doesn't make sense to me. First off, while I generally understand that the idea of 6 hour-long episodes would in fact equal approximately the same amount of runtime as 3 individual movies, the creative potential of such a decision seems worryingly limiting. I could be in the minority here, but I always found the idea of a Walking Dead film franchise enticing. Not for the promise of big budget action, but to see how this seemingly never-ending series of survival would adapt to the silver screen. It isn't hard to imagine that a meaningful film-going experience wouldn't force the creative team behind The Walking Dead to both expand the narrative world for our main characters while narrowing their collective goals into something more tangible than that of just mere survival. After all, if this is going to be a story worthy of an entire film trilogy, it had to be epic, filled with relatable characters, and ultimately lead up to a convincing and satisfying conclusion that hopefully satisfies as many people as possible.
Ray Skywalker.
That's why so many people, including myself, thought that the film trilogy, at the very least, the first film in this said trilogy, was going to focus on Andrew Lincoln's Rick Grimes being caught between wanting to go back to his family and the CRM's cure for the zombie virus. Obviously, this is something that the fans have been hoping to see for literally years now, and stories such as that would likely need to pull other players from the universe of The Walking Dead as well, beginning with Danai Gurira's Michonne after her exit from the main series back in season 10. However, I can't help but feel like this decision to walk back the promise of several feature-length films in order to pivot to a mini-series that aims to conclude the stories of 2 of the most prominent members of the entire universe is somewhat putting the last nail in the coffin of any lingering hope that AMC's Walking Dead universe could be about anything more than just survival. Instead, it seems like this creative team's brilliant decision is to simply showcase different parts of the world filled with walkers. I don't know about you, but I find this formula just a little bit tired, and the suggestion that there are several other living communities that have also weathered the zombie apocalypse, honestly, I feel like that makes all of these other spin-offs that much less enticing. It's even stranger when you remember that a not so insignificant part of the final season of The Walking Dead, as well as World Beyond, were dedicated to the idea that there aren't a whole lot of people like these characters out there, so they all need to work together in order to fix the world. Additionally, with pretty much every show going on in this universe right now, there seem to be enough elements set up to build the upcoming spin-offs into a direction that would all focus around the CRM. Instead, we seem to be getting Daryl going to 4 nightclubs, Maggie and Negan finding a civilization that lives in tall buildings and zip lines between them in New York, Morgan and the Fear Cast running into a potential faction of the US government that is way into protecting children, and even Tales of the Walking Dead teasing the whole PPP card thing from season 7 that wasn't just a retconned reference to the CRM. Serious question here. Are the CRM important to any of the upcoming spin-offs, or are they just going to be taken out by Rick and Michonne alone before we just move on into other avenues of this universe? Because at least to me, it's starting to feel like none of these shows are truly connected in any meaningful way, and will instead continue to focus on the strange new safe zone perspective that has been plaguing the world of this universe since its inception.
You can't keep getting away with it!
So, here's the question, both for you, me, everybody else listening to this. Why is this annoying? Why does this seeming lack of connection give me more doubt over the expansion of this cinematic universe than I have ever had before? Well, you know, at least for me, I just kind of find it boring. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm somewhat of a ride or die fan of The Walking Dead. At least at the moment of recording this script, I'm all in for watching Dead City, Daryl Dixon, the Rashomon series as it airs. Hell, I'm even planning on suffering through the final season of Fear the Walking Dead, just like I have done with every season of that show since Morgan appeared in season 4. My issue is, there doesn't seem to be any major concessions from anyone involved with the creation of this universe, that the formula might have gotten a little stale at this point. Instead, they seem to think that breaking away from the backwoods of Georgia will help invigorate the fan base to pre-pandemic levels. And I just couldn't disagree more. If anything, showcasing more unique civilizations from around the world kind of takes away from the time that we spent with our own set of characters throughout the past decade. If there are countless other thriving societies, why did we take so much time to focus on this one? More importantly, why did we spend so much time with these characters if their existence isn't going to be important to the overall future of this specific universe? Call me corny all you want, but I can't help but to shake the feeling that any promised expansion here, especially one utilizing the main characters after their natural ending from the source material, kind of demands a bigger story than mere survival and community hopping. Whether that story is about a cure or some kind of nationwide civil war is somewhat irrelevant. If this story and these characters have to continue, I want there to be an overarching reason as to why. There just doesn't really seem to be one here, and everything that has been released seems to suggest that there is no intention to shift in that direction. So while at the end of the day, I don't think that staying the course is enough to tear apart this entire universe within the next 2 years, but I do think it's hard to look at the state of AMC as a network along with the waning popularity of some of its biggest shows, and somehow come away with the idea that we can continue this indefinitely without some kind of major shakeup. But that's just my take. So I thought I would say this last because it kind of came into my mind as I was putting together this video. And honestly, I thought it would be something that people might start talking about in the comments, so I wanted to make sure I addressed it here. Obviously, I understand that condensing the story of a potentially financially dubious trilogy of movies into a single television series is somewhat of a better business decision than anything that I could really argue, especially when you consider everything that we've talked about from the beginning of this video. I mean, that seems to be the basic operating strategy for Disney over Disney Plus since its launch, and dishonest press releases aside, it mostly worked for them. People will subscribe to your streaming service for must-view content, and if that content's weekly basis stretches it out for over a month, then that's potentially 2 payment cycles for a new customer, and at the very least, a potential hook to get them continuously paying for the foreseeable future. So yes, I get the move away from the film trilogy as it pertains to the business of television making. Also, the ability of the creative team involved having the potential to tell the entire story and not get canceled a third of the way through is ideal, both from an audience perspective and a creative one. But even with all of that being said, it is still somewhat disappointing to me. As I said earlier, I wasn't excited to see a blockbuster view of this cinematic universe. I just hoped that the story would be focused on something other than leapfrogging through sanctuaries and hopefully finding some bigger purpose that could fill up an entire trilogy of movies. Additionally, I do think it would have been really cool to see how the continued expansion of the TV show would have impacted the stories of the films, or more likely how the films would have impacted the TV show. As somewhat of a quick example, it was kind of fun to see how Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. integrated the lore of the films into its week-to-week format, even if the films didn't really address the show's existence. And if we're taking the ideas that were promised to us from the creative team, it doesn't seem like the Walking Dead films and the TV show would have had that problem. So it would have been really interesting to see how these two separate mediums affected each other's as the years went by. And as previously mentioned, there was a lot of speculation that characters from the show would make their way to the films eventually, so it would be likely that these stories would start interconnecting in interesting ways down the line. Again, at least to me, I think that's a really fun way to expand this universe. One that, even if the upcoming miniseries has approximately the same runtime as a trilogy of films, the makers of the show couldn't really organically integrate into existing series because those expanded stories, characters, and pivotal events haven't happened yet. Rick and Michonne are stuck in their own world for 6 episodes. or at least that's the way it looks like. That's kind of why I feel like the series has been shifted away from hyper-focusing on the blockbuster status of the story to that of an epic love story. For its part, AMC has decided to shift away from the CRM, a potential nationwide or universe-encompassing villain. villain that would draw in characters from the main show and any other spin-off that they created into a more boiled down idea that has all of our main characters going from place to place around the entire Walking Dead universe and coming face to face with new and more interesting communities. I don't know about you, but that just seems like a big letdown in my opinion, and one of the reasons I just had to make this video. But that's just my take.
The KRW Network.